I mean, I'm sure you don't want to hear me say anything bad about a Batman episode, right? Maybe you should click off this video now. Hello friends, welcome back to the show. So glad to see you all once again. It is always so nice to see those of you that return week after week to see my little YouTube channel. And for those of you that are new here, well, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I think that you're going to like what we're doing here because we're going through and reviewing shows and movies that we grew up on in the 80s and 90s and enjoying all the nostalgic feels that comes with it. That's what I meant to say. And right now we're working our way through a series talking about Batman Beyond. So if this sounds like something you might enjoy, then hop below, hit the subscribe button, and you know what? Might as well click the like button while you're at it, because today we're talking about the episode Joyride, which originally aired on October 2nd, 1999.
Then step right this way.
As with any show, there's going to be some good episodes and there's going to be some bad episodes. So stay tuned till the end to find out where this one falls in the spectrum of my favorite episodes. But before we get into all that, I'm going to put the 60-second Beyond Bomb up on the clock so I can give you an entire synopsis of this episode in 60 seconds or less. Here we go. We see the Jokerz out in the middle of a field getting ready to initiate somebody, and this weird aircraft flies over. We gave them a scare, and they're like, oh, it's a UFO. And they go, oh, we're going to initiate you. Then this aircraft is flying over, and it gets word that, oh, that the temperature of the fuel's too high. You gotta land. So they land, and then they run away, and the Jokerz go and steal it, know how to fly, and they take off, and they start joyriding around town and getting hamburgers. And then Terry finally comes in, and as Batman is trying to stop them, and he teams up with the government that's trying to get this aircraft, and they go after the T's, a rival gang, and he goes, oh, it's a nuclear reactor, we got to stop them, and he goes in there and they blow it up, and then he finally gets it to stop, and then they all run away safe.
We got something more important to do.
So it is kind of neat. We get to spend a little bit more time with the Jokerz in this episode. We introduced them previously, and they pop up here and there in the episodes to serve a little purpose. But this is really the first episode that they've been featured. But even with that, it's kind of an interesting structure to this episode, where certainly they're the antagonists in this episode, but there really isn't a plot that they've derived to do something. They are strictly just out, as the title indicates, on a joyride. They steal this aircraft and they're just having fun running around.
You guys enjoying the ride?
Certainly are trying to cause harm, but it wasn't a thought out process. When we meet up with them, all they're doing is initiating somebody else to the gang. I guess there's no harm in that.
What are you going to do to me? Exactly.
But then they seize the opportunity to take over this aircraft and have some fun in the process and don't listen to authority.
Blah, blah, blah.
The first issue that I have with this episode happens a lot in stories like this, where they see this aircraft. First, they think it's a UFO, and it lands, and they everybody runs away, and they hop in it. Yes, they make a reference that all the buttons and everything are in English, but they immediately know how to fly it.
Now I know what this thing is. What?
And as intuitive as the future may be, and I mean, we will probably have self-driving cars at some point. Aircrafts, certainly government aircrafts, military aircrafts, I feel like would be a little bit more complicated than just punching some buttons and taking off and going.
Let's take it out for a spin.
Also, the daringness to just jump into something like that and be like, yeah, I'll just fly this around. I could do that. I'd be a little more apprehensive than that.
You think maybe you could slow it down a little?
And this episode is really doesn't follow any normal conveniences. Is that we spend a lot of time with the Jokerz right up at the front of getting it set up of how they get into this aircraft and what happens, and a little backstory to what's going on with this aircraft, that we actually don't even get to see Batman or Terry until about a third of the way up through the episode.
Hey, Bats, want a race?
And it was noticeable. I missed Batman in the beginning. We have this gang and kind of interesting characters with that, but at some point we got to introduce Batman into the Batman show. right?
Easy for you to say.
My second issue with this episode is when stories avoid logic to serve the conflict or the struggle that they're trying to tell. And that happens, obviously, in this episode, is we set up when the real pilots are in the aircraft that, oh, the fuel temperature's too hot, and they're told, oh, you got to land this immediately and get as far away from it as possible. Obviously, there's some danger there, right? So they tell them, they land, they run away, they do what they're supposed to.
Land right now and get as far away from the vehicle as fast as you can.
The first element of that's a problem is, why doesn't it blow up right away? If the danger is so imminent that you got to get away from it and run as far away from it as you can, we spend, at least in real time, another 20 minutes before it is about to go nuclear.
Who cares?
The next issue is that when they actually radio the Jokerz as they're flying around in this is government property. You need to land it and get away. You're going to be in trouble for doing this.
You have to return it now.
That's all well and good, but obviously these guys don't respond to authority. The first thing that I would have said to them is, you got to get away from this. It's going to blow up. Now, I get it. There's obviously some secrecy that's going on, that they weren't allowed to use nuclear power for this. And she's even hesitant to tell Terry or Batman what's going on. But I think a common description that we would all understand is, that's about to blow up. You need to get out of it for your own safety.
There's another reason you need to return it.
I feel like I would start with that. But again, it's possible that the Jokerz still would have stayed in the vehicle and not gotten out because they didn't believe her or whatever the case is. But I feel like they avoided the most obvious solution because it was easier to keep them in the craft and have them go, oh, no, I'm done listening to you, and shut off the radio. Not a logical course of action for the story.
So stop them.
There's moments in some of these episodes that catch my attention where I go, maybe this was just rushed, that they didn't spend as much time as they should have on this and just wanted to get it done. And I think of that when we see them in the cockpit, that the streaking, the animation of the streaking background behind them doesn't even look right and looks underdeveloped, less than the quality than what we normally see in the episodes. And I go, maybe this was just a rushed episode. The animation wasn't even spent that much time on.
You don't know anything.
I mean, we see Batman swinging on a rope, for crying out loud. Future Batman, Batman Beyond, swinging on a rope. He's got rocket shoes, he's got wings, he's got all these other abilities to be able to flying, and he's swinging on a rope? What is going on in this episode? Then my third issue with this episode is the final conflict of trying to get this nuclear reactor shut down is a key card.
But right after the crash, you're going to have to use this key to deactivate it.
That doesn't make any sense. And certainly, again, we should assume that technology is advanced, so the act of a nuclear reaction, housing it and how to turn it on and off may be different. One aspect of that is they outlawed that years ago, so I assume they're not developing new technology for it.
Don't you think I know that?
And B, if they have a way of shutting it off electronically with a card, why couldn't they do that over the computer or through a network? Again, it's a logic problem that would not serve the story, because then they could easily have went into the computer way back at the beginning, went, oh, the temperature's too hot. Let me bring that down electronically. Let me lower the reactor fusion, whatever it is, and get this to be reduced.
But how was I supposed to make something state-of-the-art on the pitiful budget the government gave me? How?
Versus, oh, you need to insert this key card to shut it down, which one doesn't make any sense and is incredibly impractical. Why would you make that the fail-safe to go, oh, you have this card? And if that needed to happen, why didn't she tell the pilots initially to go, hey, listen, here's what you got to do. You got to land it. You got to get out your security card and shut the reactor down. Otherwise, we're going to blow up half the country.
That key will stop it.
Again, I think the issue is that it was rushed. I think that these plot points, as you're storyboarding an episode like this, should have and probably did. We have very competent, smart people writing these episodes, that they probably did come up and go, oh, we need a way around that. we need to get from this point to this point. How do we connect those dots? And again, it just being rushed to go, let's just make it a key card so that Batman has to physically be there to shut it down versus through the computer. And, well, the Jokers just know how to fly so that we can get them up in the air. And they just sort of picked easy ways out that just made this episode not connect for me.
Don't make me laugh. They were just a crutch.
However, having said all that, I do like the through line of this new recruit, even from the beginning, not sure of if this is the gang that he wants to get involved in, and not sure if he should do this, what he should and shouldn't do, and him ultimately being the one to turn on them to save Batman, to save the bomb from going off. I like that moment. So when it comes time to rank this episode, it should be to a surprise to no one that this just didn't work for me. It was an enjoyable episode to watch. I like all the aircrafts. I love the aerial battles. I like that the Jokers had more to do. But when the story doesn't work and the story logic problems, when I end up spending most of the time watching it going, oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, that's not a logical reaction. You know, I mentioned in the last episode, I'm not a big horror fan. I think that's part of my issue with a lot of horror movies is the characters in the movies don't react logically. It just disconnects for me. So for all those reasons, it should be no surprise. This episode falls at the bottom of my list and number 15 so far, just below Golem, because that at least had an interesting character and a justified backstory. Although it was reduced to just hero versus big creature, it at least had a justified backstory rather than these people this gang just randomly doing things and no logical steps to it.
Now all of you get out of here. Please.
So I am curious, do you agree with me? I've been pretty harsh on this episode. Do you agree with me that it deserves to be at the bottom of the list? Or are there other enjoyable elements to it that I didn't see because I was so stuck on the story? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button. If you want to see more episodes like this, just hit subscribe. I have new episodes coming out every week, and you don't want to miss a single one. And next up, we have the episode Lost Souls, so you don't want to miss that. As always, I'm Andy Canode. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.